Coming up on Lawmakers, the Senate passes new district maps. GRTA Director Steve Stancil talks traffic. And how proposed cuts to the community health budget could affect disabled children. Those stories and more are coming up next.
Live from Atlanta, this is Lawmakers for Friday, February 20th. Here are your hosts, Gerald Bryant and Nwandi Lawson.
Good evening, everyone. Also on tonight's broadcast, House Rules Chair Smyre fires back at critics who say he's holding up important legislation.
And the Georgia Cancer Coalition brings 2 new initiatives to the state in the battle against cancer. But our top story tonight, the Senate passes new district maps.
The Senate and House are trying to meet a March 1st redistricting deadline set by a federal court order. Senate Republicans say the new maps are fair and split far fewer counties and precincts than the districts drawn by Democrats in 2001.
The map that we have before you today is one that, to a much greater degree, respects those communities of interest, respects those historical areas of the state, and deserves your positive support.
It is time to stop. Time to stop spending money. Time to stop making excuses. Time to stop delay. Stop the partisanship. As the judges said yesterday, the constitutional violations are getting worse every single day due to the growth patterns in this state. Lastly, to the Secretary of State, stop the lawyers, stop violating the rights of Georgians, and do your duty as head of the Elections Division of this state to assure fair elections and protect the rights of the voters. Stop playing politics.
Democrats say the new maps will hurt South Georgia, and Democrats acknowledge that politics entered into the 2001 maps, but accuse Republicans of refusing to admit, that they are doing the same thing, citing GOP statements from 3 years ago saying that redistricting should be politically blind.
And to state that this was not politically motivated is an understatement. To state that this is politically blind is simply wrong. You can now draw a line from Columbus to Macon to Savannah, and the people in those areas of the state are about to get it on the chin.
I don't mind people saying, "I told you so." I don't mind you having your opportunity to do whatever you want to do as far as your position is concerned. But I have some fundamental problem with a party that gained a Senate majority by defection, trying to give a lesson on political morality to a party that gained its majority by election.
The new Senate district plan passed by a vote of 32 to 23 and goes to the House. Senate President Pro Tem Eric Johnson urged the House to pass the Senate maps quickly and pledged to return that courtesy.
If the House passed our map, I think we could swallow hard and pass their map, even with multi-member districts. I cannot speak for the Senate, but the governor would veto it, so I'm not sure it makes much difference.
The House Reapportionment Committee meets Monday and is expected, to pass their own maps. Meanwhile, Attorney General Thurbert Baker plans to appeal the federal court-ordered redistricting.
And in the House, at least one House leader is not at all pleased about a Senate charge that the House is stalling on the passage of major legislation. House Rules Chairman Calvin Smyre today lashed out at Senator Bill Stevens for referring to him as Representative Gridlock in a recent newspaper article.
I will not be dictated to by the Georgia Senate on when bills will be called and will not be called. And that is an auspices of the Rules Committee authorized by the Speaker and by you. And the Senate will not dictate when I will or will not call bills up for consideration by this House. I have never, ever talked about a senator publicly, nor a member of this House, in 30 years. And here comes some Johnny come lately. Just got here, hadn't been here long. Don't know much about this legislative process. And gonna have the audacity, the nerve, and the gall to tell me how to run my committee. Won't work.
In other news, the Georgia Regional Transportation Authority have improvement plans they're eager to begin. But two bills, one in the U.S. Congress, the other in the Georgia General Assembly, leave the financial situation unclear. David Zelski talked with GRTA Executive Director Steve Stancil today and joins us live with the details. David.
Well, thanks, Gerald. Once a transportation bill of some sort passes Congress, Georgia can expect around $1 billion to aid these projects. Now, the Senate just passed one version, but without support from either of Georgia's U.S. senators.
It definitely will impact GRTA on some of the projects that we may or may not be able to do next year, but we are supporting our senators.
In the Georgia General Assembly, House Bill 1295 passed the House yesterday, a two-part bill that Stancil believes could bring significant help to the entire state.
Back in, I believe it was 1999, the legislature said that the Department of Transportation would divide up their transportation dollars equally among the congressional districts. We now have 13 congressional districts, and that has put a real strain on the metropolitan area and some of the districts that have major interstate projects, I-75 in South Georgia and I-95 down on the coast. Second thing the bill does, it also, right now there is a 4-cent sales tax on gas other than the motor fuel tax. 3% of that has been going to the Department of Transportation, and this changes it so all 4 pennies will go to the Department of Transportation for transportation projects.
GRTA's current focus is on 3 projects. Their first priority is a Northwest Transit plan that would provide bus rapid transit in HOV lanes connecting Midtown up to Kennesaw. Second is to implement recommendations from a 1,600-page study on traffic needs between I-75 and I-85 north of the top end of I-285. And finally, an express service scheduled to begin this summer with motor coaches interconnecting 11 of the 13 metro Atlanta counties. Now, since Stancil was appointed executive director of GRTA, he says their mission has become more focused, concentrating on mobility, air quality, and land use. Reporting live, I'm David Zelski for Lawmakers.
Thank you very much, David.
Teleworking has long been touted as at least a partial solution to Georgia's traffic woes. Last year, Governor Sonny Perdue started a pilot program for state employees that will study teleworking as an option to increase productivity and decrease traffic and pollution. Representative Kathy Ash thinks teleworking should be rewarded with tax credits for both employees and employers. Lawmakers Christy Moran has more about that proposal.
For many Georgians, the process of going to work involves an hour of preparation and potential hours of battling traffic gridlock. But for some employees, the workplace looks a bit different than a traditional cubicle. Robin Ingram is a teleworker, and instead of working from an office, she performs her professional duties from her home.
The distractions are greater at work. Because when you have, your coworkers around you, you're going to stop and talk about things. You're going to go over to get a cup of coffee and run into how many people. And so for me, the distractions were greater at work.
Representative Kathy Ash says that the income tax credit is justified because of the benefits that teleworking provides to Georgia's pollution and traffic concerns.
Teleworking is a concept that really does probably at least 3 things. First thing it does is it keeps people working in some place other than their office, and so congestion gets solved, some of that traffic that we talk about all the time. Secondly, air quality. If you don't have as many cars on the road going to work, you help with the air quality issues. And thirdly, worker productivity is improved with teleworking. Some statistics say as much as 10 to 20% more productive by working at a remote site in dealing with other family issues, so it's very family friendly as well.
House Bill 1374 is currently in the Income Tax Subcommittee. If the bill passes, teleworkers could receive up to $5,000 and their employers up to $40,000. Reporting for Lawmakers, I'm Christy Moran.
A program that helps middle-income families access Medicaid for their disabled children may experience some cuts. Lawmakers Chrissy Thrasher is here with more on the Katie Beckett waiver program. Chrissy.
Well, and Wandy, the program currently pays for all medical expenses insurance companies will not cover, but that soon may change.
Alexis Butler is like any 11-year-old girl. She enjoys riding, playing with her dog Max, and spending time with her friend. But Alexis encounters challenges not every child faces.
She was born very, very premature. She developed a brain bleed, which caused the cerebral palsy.
And with her disability comes medical bills her family must pay every month.
She has physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy 2 to 3 times a week. And our private insurances just would not cover all of that.
But thanks to the Katie Beckett waiver program, these medical bills are 100% covered.
These are usually middle income to higher income families, and that would allow them to waive the income eligibility of the family just to look at the child in terms of making sure they get the supports that they need.
But the program may soon undergo some changes.
The Department of Community Health has proposed putting a premium on those families that receive the Katie Beckett or deeming waivers.
That means families who participate in the program may have to pay up to $400 a month.
Part of it is because we're in a budget crisis right now, and so it's a way of collecting dollars and trying to address that that deficit in terms of Medicaid.
There's many families I've heard from that it will cause a lot. They're pretty much stretched financially as it is, and to add on another, premium to pay, it can be very devastating, and I'm anticipating it being devastating for our family. But I'll do what I have to do for my child.
And the Department of Community Health says if the premiums are enacted in fiscal year 2004, the state will save over $350,000. And in fiscal year 2005, that number will increase to $1.5 million in state funds. Reporting live, I'm Chrissy Thrasher for Lawmakers.
Thank you, Chrissy.
Senator Sam Zamarripa announced plans to introduce the Homestead Assessment Fairness Act today. Proponents say the bill will protect homeowners in Atlanta and Fulton County. Lawmaker Samantha Cheshire has more on this story.
The Homestead Assessment Fairness Act was created to prevent unexpected tax increases from property reassessment.
And what it essentially does is it provides a mechanism to ensure that property taxes remain stable over a long period of time for homeowners, while giving municipal governments and local school districts the ability to continue to raise the millage rate when they need revenue to expand or improve their municipal services.
Senator Sam Zamarripa says this bill will especially help those on a fixed income.
This bill will have a dramatic impact on seniors throughout the metropolitan area in Fulton County, because it will provide them with predictability in the cost of their property taxes and their monthly payments that they have to make in order to live their lives.
This bill has bipartisan support. Representative Wendell Willard believes this will help stabilize neighborhoods in Atlanta and Fulton County.
I've had citizens in my community who've had to leave the county as a result of their taxes becoming so high through this regressive type of taxation.
Similar bills have been effective in Muskogee, Cobb, and Gwinnett counties. I'm Samantha Cheshire for Lawmakers.
Well, the House today votes to end its practice of allowing legislators to smoke in one of the chamber anterooms. With the support of Representative Tom Buck, who himself is trying to kick the habit, Representative Joe Hextall seemed poised for an easy victory with House Resolution 1193. But his comments from the well may have riled some of his colleagues. He then tried to apologize and then took a trip to the old smoking lounge to celebrate his win.
Oh, by the way, Mr. Speaker, let me just say to you, and I want you to hear this, and I'm not playing. If I see one red vote on that wall, I have a cane and I'm able, and you're going to be in serious trouble. I better not see one red vote on this resolution. Do you understand that? I dare you to vote. I dare you to vote red. I apologize for the House, Mr. Speaker. Yeah, wonderful and smoke free. I can breathe, man.
And as you saw, some of the legislators were not intimidated by Representative Hextall's threat. Nevertheless, the House adopted the smoking ban by a vote of 131 to 18.
According to the Georgia Cancer Coalition, 1 of every 4 Georgians die of cancer. Today, the coalition announced 2 different weapons in the war against the disease. One is a grant program for Georgia researchers. The other, a recruiting initiative to bring cancer research experts to the state. Lawmakers Jesse Freeman is live with more on that story. Jesse.
Gerald, the Georgia Cancer Coalition has recruited 32 of the nation's leading cancer experts and relocated them to research facilities in Georgia. They are also awarding a total of $1 million in research grants to such facilities around the state. Governor Perdue's Chief of Staff, John Watson, was on hand for the announcement.
Through the coalition,
Groundbreaking cancer research is happening in Georgia today. We are proud that some of the finest minds in the field of oncology call Georgia home. And we're proud to add to their ranks the recruitment of 32 leading cancer researchers from around the nation to expand the Distinguished Cancer Clinicians and Scientists program. These scientists will advance our knowledge in some of the most promising areas of research, like molecular and cancer cell biology and advanced imaging, and early detection methods through protein profiles and genetic intervention.
Tobacco settlements have made possible the recruitment of the experts, but the grant program is being funded by the generosity of taxpayers who donate from their returns by checking a box on their income tax forms.
I was in Washington recently, and a number of people were coming up to me saying, tell me what's happening in Georgia, because the combination of the federal government, the state government, and the private sector working in such a focused way has gotten the attention of the whole country.
Now, according to GCC President William Todd, a unique aspect of the tax checkbox donation is that none of that money is used for administrative services. Supposedly 100% goes to cancer research. Reporting live, I'm Jesse Freeman for Lawmakers.
And tell us, Jesse, what agency manages these donations?
Well, those funds are administered through to the Georgia Cancer Coalition by the Department of Human Resources.
Thank you very much, Jesse.
Tort reform legislation dealing with the admission of expert witnesses in medical malpractice cases passes a judiciary subcommittee today. The first in a series of judiciary subcommittee meetings dealing with tort reform was held this afternoon, and discussion centered on House Bills 1399 and 1420. The bills provide qualification for admitting expert witnesses into medical malpractice hearings. Advocates claim that the bills would cut down on the number of frivolous medical malpractice cases that go to court. The bills also provide criteria for the qualification of a witness as an expert in a field. Now, opponents of these bills say that they would cause the qualifications of all witnesses to be questioned in court.
As soon as you pass this statute, changing the rules about expert witnesses, let's say it knocks out that small percentage of frivolous lawsuit. It's also, though, going to affect every other case, because this statute will be so litigated you cannot imagine. Every case, even by the so-called cream of the crop, is going to have a motion filed testing the statute and seeing if you can get an expert kicked out. And hey, maybe the plaintiffs will do it back to the defendants. What's the ultimate consequence of that? It is litigation within litigation. It is rising cost, legal expenses, expert witness fees. It's going to lengthen the time of a trial. At the end of the case, it is going to cost money. It's going to do the opposite of what they're asking. It's going to drive up costs.
Now, House Bill 1420 failed to pass the House subcommittee. House Bill 1399 was approved by that committee but was heavily amended before being given a due pass by committee substitute. It now moves to the full House Judiciary Committee.
Redistricting and role reversal, those are a couple of topics I discussed with veteran journalist Tom Crawford from CapitolImpact.com. I asked Tom what was next in the redistricting scenario.
Gerald, as I understand it, the House Reapportionment Committee will meet on Monday afternoon. I think they'll pass out a House plan at that time. The full House can vote on it Tuesday and get it over to the Senate, which could maybe be adopted by the end of next week.
What do you think about the possibility that there will still be multi-member districts in that House plan, something that the governor has said he would veto?
The House Democratic leadership still wants to do it, and I think they will make every effort to include them in the plan that is sent over. The Senate Republicans say we don't like it, although I know Eric Johnson did say today he thought they could swallow hard and pass it if they had to, but they still think Governor Sonny Perdue would veto it, so that may send everybody back to square one.
One thing that I think we obviously both noticed that, and this is happening on a lot of issues this year, but it was kind of strange to hear the arguments Republicans and Democrats were making about the districts, because they're pretty much opposite than the ones that were being made in 2001.
That's right, Gerald. We have sort of stepped through the looking glass here, if you want to say it that way. The things that Republicans complained about 2 years ago, the Democrats are complaining about now, and vice versa. I think what it all comes down to is the side that has the votes is going to draw the lines, and the other side's going to complain about it, and that's the way it's always going to be.
There was some debate today about, some discussion about people who had been taken out of their districts. That didn't happen a lot under this plan, but there are some specifically where it may be even people who plan on running or running again might be affected by these maps. And you mentioned one in particular in the Augusta area.
Right. In Augusta, you had a situation where Senator Randy Hall is a Republican who represents a predominantly black district. The map that the Senate approved today takes two of the leading black politicians in Augusta, Charles Walker and Ed Tarver, out of Randy Hall's district and puts them into a district next door that's much wider, in which neither of them really would have a realistic chance of winning. That happened in some other areas of the state as well, where Democratic candidates were drawn out of districts where they had planned to challenge a Republican incumbent.
I guess we'll know by this time next week whether or not they're going to meet that March 1st deadline. Let's move along to some things happening in the House and also some kind of role reversals there. Something unusual, Republicans defending a project that was a pet project of former Speaker of the House, Tom Murphy.
That's right. And Gerald, as you remember, there was probably no one who was more disliked by the Republicans than Tom Murphy, and he certainly had no love lost for them either. 2 years ago, when Murphy was trying to get funding put in to build a reservoir in his district, Republicans did not consider that a wise use of money. So this year, when Murphy's no longer the Speaker, they have cut that money out of the state budget, and a lot of these same Republicans are now complaining, well, wait a minute, we need to keep that money in and build that reservoir because we need to save this water. So we have seen a lot of flip-flops in a lot of strange places that we never saw them before.
Some unusual times at the Capitol for those of us who have been around for a long time, some unusual role reversals.
Very strange, Gerald.
Thank you very much, Tom Crawford from CapitolImpact.com. Thanks for joining us on Lawmakers.
My pleasure.
Well, in case you missed a Lawmakers broadcast this week, here's a look back at some of the highlights.
On Monday, the Senate approved a constitutional amendment banning gay marriage, but not without heated debate.
I believe in our faith-based conservative values.
Why are you working so hard to legislate moral values?
The House Appropriations Committee approved the mid-year adjustments to the 2004 budget. One side says insurance premiums will go down if the state caps malpractice awards, while the other argues that this will limit their access to justice. Both want to weigh in on the tort reform debate. On Tuesday, members of Georgia Equality decried the Senate approval of a ban on gay marriage. Hours later, the Christian Coalition rallied in support of the passage of Senate Resolution 595. House Republicans introduced a bill to promote the display of the Ten Commandments and patriotic documents. In the Senate, the governor's ethics legislation was given a committee due pass, and a bill to regulate payday loan companies was sent back to the House after the Senate rejected changes to the original bill. The House Reapportionment Committee reviewed a draft of new maps ordered after a federal panel rejected current state House and Senate districts. Wednesday marked the halfway point of the session. The House agreed to a state budget for the remainder of the fiscal year. Debate centered around how to allocate $90 million not taken into account in the original draft. It took only 30 minutes for the Senate Reapportionment Committee to approve a map of new Senate districts. The governor and lieutenant governor stand together in support of the passage of Senate Bill 467, creating a child endangerment felony. Yesterday,
after hearing oral argument extensively, the judges recessed, went into their chambers, and came out and have just delivered these words and message to the Georgia General Assembly: stay denied.
A federal appeals court denied a stay of the order that the House must draw new maps. Georgia Parent-Teacher Association members rallied with a message about education funding.
Your actions speak louder than your words. Either education is a priority or it isn't.
Although the governor remains committed to linking the Hope Scholarship to SAT scores, a joint House-Senate Education Committee evaluated funding options for the scholarship without considering the test. And throughout the week, members of the General Assembly have been remembering longtime House Speaker Tom Murphy. Mr. Murphy suffered a series of strokes following surgery last week. He's been moved from intensive care and is listed in stable condition.
Our state is what it is today due to his direct, strong, fiscally conservative, and yet compassionate hand that has affected the life of each and every Georgian.
And that's a look back at this week under the Gold Dome.
Well, you may remember the character A-Train from the feature film The Tuskegee Airmen. Well, today the General Assembly met the man who was known by that nickname. Lieutenant Colonel Charles Dryden spoke on behalf of the 992 Tuskegee Airmen, reminding the legislators of the challenges they had to overcome.
Throughout the population in general, the military in particular, and in the Congress, there was the belief that blacks could not do anything technical. And so we had the opportunity to do this, and because of the fact that we had an ultimatum, that is to say a mandate, to prove that we could do it, we dared not fail. We had to succeed. If we failed, then our detractors and the naysayers could say, we told you they couldn't do it, and we proved that they couldn't, so just don't bother us anymore. Well, did we fool them? We had the most unmatched record of all outfits that escorted friendly bombers during World War II. We never.
Lieutenant Colonel Dryden was interrupted by applause as he tried to tell the House that his squadron never lost a bomber in combat.
The 7th annual Africa Day at the Capitol was held today. Joe Keshi, the Consul General of Nigeria, spoke to the House and Senate about the importance of the day. Lawmakers Angelina Washington tells us more about today's activities.
Africa Day at the Capitol has been a tradition for the past 6 years.
Well, Africa Day is an annual occurrence here, and we are trying to integrate the cultures and have there be more understanding of the fact that Georgia is such an international state, and in fact Atlanta is very international, and we just want to make sure that people are aware of the different cultures that are here. And
Africa Day at the Capitol was established as a day to recognize Africans in Atlanta while allowing them the opportunity to voice their concerns for the African community in Georgia. Consul General of Nigeria spoke to the Senate and House about his term as the Consul General of Nigeria at the Atlanta office.
For me and my lovely wife, we spent 4 years in Georgia, and it is time for us to leave. But I assure you of this, when we do leave next month, we always have Georgia on our mind.
Consul General Keshi explained the importance of African Day at the Capitol.
There are a growing number of Africans in this community, and they need to be the contributions they are making needs to be recognized and acknowledged.
At the conclusion of the day, the Fung African dancers performed for Consul General Keshi, his wife, and many others. Africa Day here at the Capitol was a day for all to enjoy. I'm Angelina Washington for Lawmakers.
Well, coming up Monday on Lawmakers, the House Committee on Reapportionment was expected to draft its new district maps, and Georgia Equality holds a rally for the people of faith opposed to legislation that would effectively ban gay marriage in Georgia. We'll have those stories and all the latest from Under the Gold Dome Monday at 7. Sunday at 1 p.m., be sure to tune in for Georgia Week in Review. Labor Commissioner and award-winning author Michael Thurman joins host Susan Hoffman to talk about his book, Freedom. That's Sunday at 1 p.m. right here on Georgia Public Broadcasting. Now stay tuned for the Georgia Business Report. That program is here next on Georgia Public Broadcasting.
That's our broadcast for this, the 22nd day of the Georgia General Assembly. Thanks for joining us. I'm Gerald Bryant.
And I'm Nwandi Lawson. For all of us here, good night.